Good evening, Metal Faithful. It is I, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And this is the Metal Hammer of Doom. Tonight, we are once again going off the beaten path, as we are wont to do on the Metal Hammer of Doom. And we're going to review something of the more pop rock, baroque pop, orchestral pop genre. Not quite metal. This is good old-fashioned rock band. It's one of my favorites. I named my son after one of their songs, goddammit. The name of that band is Weezer. And we are reviewing their 14th studio album, OK Human, which came out January 29th, 2021. They released their first single, All My Favorite Songs, on January 21st, 2021. And joining me, just discovering that Weezer was a thing after I, handed him the entire box of Weezer stuff and said, here, now, listen. Ladies and gentlemen, he looks like Buddy Holly and maybe the Mary Tyler Moore. I don't care what you say about him anyway. I don't care about that. It's Jesse Starcher. How do you do, sir?
Come sit next to me. Pour yourself some tea, Mark Radulich. Hey, I draw your attention to, I think it was the last Metal Hammer of Doom. And I don't know if we talked about this on air or if it was after said episode, but we discussed you setting a playlist up for me, to which at first you were like, why don't you just go find the set up playlist through Spotify and listen to that? And I said, no, you curate me. Your favorites, but just do 15 of them, all right? All I want is 15 of your favorite Weezer songs so I can get a good feel of what Mark Radulich likes.
And I narrowed it down to a tight 28.
And then the Blue Album as well.
And the Blue Album.
And the Blue Album. So, and yes, I got a good helping of Weezer over the past week or so. And I liked it. I at first going into it, I was like, man, I don't remember this band. I know I haven't sought them out, and listening to them was most likely due to me having a radio station on at the time. So I know I've heard some of the hits, but then I started to realize as I'm going through the playlist and the Blue Album, I've heard a lot more than I actually gave myself credit for. So, yes, I'm new to the school of Weezer, and I'm here to learn about OK Human and discuss it with you tonight. I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. Also joining us tonight, making, I think, his first appearance on the Metal Hammer of Doom in all the years we've been doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, the usual opposite attorney of me on Trial. He's been guest appearing on a whole... He's like Snoop Dogg these days. He just wanders in with weed. Ladies and gentlemen...
Welcome to the party.
It's Sean Comer. How do you do, sir?
First off, in all fairness, I don't care what artist you pick, you can almost never go wrong with Spotify's This Is playlist when it comes to an introductory sampler for just about anybody. Mm-hmm. I've looked at so many of them that for almost every artist, I just kind of go down the line and think, man, you just didn't miss a trick. Mm-hmm. There's not a song I could want to listen to that you've left off of here. Except Frank Turner's. Frank Turner's is missing maybe one or two, but I'm also admittedly a bit of a fanboy. So I'm a little bit choosy in that regard. And second, Snoop Dogg? Excuse me? I try to branch out a little bit. And all of a sudden, I'm some ditzy pothead that just stumbles in to get you high.
I like the more you just making guest appearances hither and thither is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and last but not least, this is actually not my first time on the Metal Hammer of Doom. It's just the first time in many, many moons that I've been on here, because the last time I believe I was on was to talk, I want to say, I think it was Nightwish, back when Coop was still hosting.
Yeah.
That might have been on one of my hiatuses then. I think that now that you mention it, as you were saying it, I'm like, oh, you know what? I bet he's talking about one of the ones I was off on, and it was just you two.
Yeah, and there was Nightwish, and I could have sworn there was maybe one other, or maybe we just made Nightwish a two-parter.
I know that, if I remember correctly, didn't you and him do like a Nightwish retrospective?
I think that might have been it. It was I think we either did one huge episode, or we split it off into two parts.
Well, as we've learned, if it was on Blog Talk Radio prior to 2018, it's gone now. So
you might be able to find some web remnant out there of what it was called, but that's about it. You're not going to be able to listen to it.
You will get a link that takes you nowhere. All right, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit just about the band and and how we all ended up getting to Weezer. Jesse, you talked about how you might have heard this and that Weezer. And then I made you. It's so funny because when you were like, I want you to curate me a playlist. I think my reaction was like, "What am I, your girlfriend? What's wrong with you?" Just and then and then I was like, "Okay, you got it." And I'll tell you, I had a really hard time. Like when you get to the later Weezer albums, which I'm not as familiar with, probably after the Red album. It gets a little bit harder for me, and there was some stuff I had to re-listen to. But yeah, there's so much good Weezer out there, and it was hard for me to sort of whittle down, like, what's the best stuff. Now, you got that 28-song playlist plus the Blue album. What were some of your favorites?
So easily, anything off the Blue album stuck out for me. I think it was a really tight album, just kind of going through there. But if I'm to pick something off of there, my goodness, I had the top 5 for Weezer in front of me off of Spotify. Say It Ain't So is a great one. Buddy Holly's the one that I recognize the most because I remember that video where they're playing in the Happy Days. What is it? Al's? I can't remember the name of the can't remember the name of the diner. Al's Diner or something. But anyway, so those two right there, I would say easily stick out for me. Off your playlist though, so Pink Triangle. Yeah. Okay. Off of Pinkerton.
I'm dumb. She's a lesbian.
I enjoyed that. I recognized Hash Pipe.
Sure.
Beverly Hills, which I think I may have heard once or twice, and you've quoted a million times to me, I think. So,
hey, give me.
The covers album that they did, the Teal album.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff off there. Specifically, Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah, right.
Is one of my favorite covers that they did. And granted, everybody gives props to the Africa cover. I don't think I've ever clicked on it to listen to it. Didn't they do that with Weird Al at one point?
The thing that I remember most about the Africa thing was, for a while, it was people just tagging Weezer on Twitter, you should do this, and so they just kept doing Toto covers because they also did Rosanna, and then I think Toto did one of their songs, they got into the geekiest rap battle ever.
Okay, YouTube has a video of a concert. Weezer performing Africa cover with Weird Al Yankovic, August 9th, 2018. So I remember seeing that pop up in my feed. But I'll tell you that my favorite song off the entire playlist that you provided me was Can't Knock the Hustle.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like much of anything else that I believe you see on the playlist you made, but it is the poppiest, grooviest song that stuck out to me, and I was like, wow, this is the one right here. So I'm giving that one, that's my chef's kiss off the Weezer for Jesse minus the Blue album playlist.
Yeah, Can't Knock the Hustle kicks ass. And it's they're such nerdy, fun rock guys, and then it's, they're calling people bitches and stuff on that song. It's what is
it's
this?
Hilarious.
So Sean, tell me your story. How did you come to Weezer?
I'm old enough that I remember Beavis and Butthead riffing on the Buddy Holly video. Of course, at that point, my tastes had not quite evolved enough to appreciate the music of the times of the early to mid '90s enough that Weezer could kind of get their tendrils into me and kind of graft on. I appreciated Buddy Holly enough, and I think a couple other songs I heard off the Blue album. I didn't listen to Pinkerton until many moons later. And then, years and years down the line, after, Rivers had gone to college and whatnot, and had come back to making music full-time properly, Green album comes out. I heard Hash Pipe for the first time. The more I heard it, the more I liked it. and I listened to the Green Album. I dug that well enough for me to go back and listen to the Blue Album, which I dug immediately. It's obviously one of those albums that just, there's not a skippable track on it. Not one. And it's almost over before you know it. Pinkerton was even more brilliant and even further fascinated me. And I was just kind of gobsmacked for a while when I went, holy shit, this band's been around this long and they've only got 3 albums? God, I hope they're not done after Green. And lo and behold, they weren't. I listened to the Red Album. I listened to Maladroit. Loved them both. And then years went by without me really listening to much Weezer at all. Kind of up until you proposed this album, and I kind of went and listened to some more, and I was utterly fascinated by just how much Rivers had evolved and challenged himself in the band over the years. They are such a far cry from being the vaguely indie-ish darlings. I mean, how indie can you be when your first studio album comes out on DGC Records?
It's like an independent film on Warner Brothers.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's an independent spirit that the major label latched onto.
Sure.
It is sanitized white suburban garage rock. But you can't hold that against it, because then when you really sit down and appreciate it, you realize that it's white, sanitized suburban garage rock made by arguably just about the smartest motherfucker in the room.
Yeah, I was telling Jesse, I was like, I've often described Weezer as rock and roll for smart people. And, and it really is. Like, it's a caliber above just about any artist I can think of in terms of these guys are brilliant, and the stuff they're writing about, the stuff they're talking about in their music is resonant and brilliant from where I'm standing. And and I'm not really as much a lyric guy as Jesse is, but I'll tell you, this is one of the few bands where I can listen to the lyrics. I'm like, wow, they are singing my thoughts. These guys are talking about stuff I understand and I get.
You know what really kind of sets them apart for me, though? And it's the fact that, allow me to make a comparison. Let me compare Weezer to, say, The Strokes. You've got this band of guys who are kind of dressed like stylish hipsters and trying to kind of emulate this sound of really stripped down, New York small club indie rock. But, I mean, Julian Casablancas is a trust fund baby. And it kind of feels like he and the rest of the band, at least at the time, were kind of sort of just kind of cosplaying the motif. Whereas with Rivers, you're getting that sound, but meanwhile, you never get the feeling the band is really kind of harboring any pretense of being something that they're not.
No, they are. If nothing else, Weezer is genuine.
Well, if nothing else, you have to take into consideration the fact that Rivers, by his own admission, I was reading his NPR interview earlier, and it's really fascinating stuff. He talks about how he got into making music because he was kind of drunk on the dream of rock stardom. And then Blue Album comes along and it hits, and he realizes, holy shit, do I really want to live like this? Do I really want to just keep playing these same dozen or so songs to crowds every single night? And that really spurred him to go out and kind of challenge himself from then on, to the point where Pinkerton is an album that it's the weirdest fucking thing. Critics loved it. Fans liked it, although it didn't sell terribly well because everybody kind of wanted him to make another Blue Album.
Yeah, I was one of those people. I had a very similar reaction to Weezer that I had with Clutch, where, like, the Blue Album is one of my favorite albums of all time, And when their follow-up came out, I was like, okay, more Blue album. More Shogun named Marcus, please. Clutch.
But you see,
and they both did the same thing. That's why I made the comparison. Clutch comes along and then does self-titled, and it's like, what is this? And I remember Pinkerton, like, I didn't love Pinkerton at first. I have come to love it years later, but I'm also not, the angry metalhead I used to be. So it was one of those where once the expectations went away and once everything had to stop sounding like Pantera, I was much more accepting of that album.
See, but here's the thing. I don't know if Rivers' perspective on it has maybe changed over the years, but I remember many years ago reading interviews with him where he said that he hated Pinkerton. He didn't like playing it live. It's a phenomenon that with some artists of all stripes that I kind of first became aware of when I read Anthony Burgess's introduction to A Clockwork Orange, where he said that, as much as everybody else liked it, he had just become kind of weary of it, kind of sick of it over the years. And I mean that happens every so often. Every so often, somebody makes something, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a book or whatever, where people just adore it. And even the person who makes it just kind of sits there and go, "Really?
Yeah,
everything I've done, and you glom onto this?"
Yeah, Kurt Cobain had a very similar reaction in Nevermind, where it was, they had done Bleach, they had done some EPs, they were very much like, the dirty, grungy, as it was called, Seattle sound, and then Nevermind hits, and suddenly Nirvana is a cultural, icon, and it was like, make another Nevermind, and it was like, ugh,
It's you know what it is? It's the Dave Chappelle effect. Because I remember he cites it as one of the moments when I think he realized he was done with Chappelle's show, when he actually walked out on a stand-up set because he kept getting people who were screaming at him to do Little John, or do Rick James.
He actually, I think in one of his stand-ups, he talked about, like, could you not call me a bitch in front of my children? Because people were like running up to him like at Disneyland. I'm Rick James, bitch. Like running away, and Dave Chappelle's like, my kids are here. Just another example of this, and then we'll start playing some music. Jello Biafra has often lamented his career with the Dead Kennedys. He was like, the Dead Kennedys put out several albums, and all anyone seems to want me to do is sing "Holiday in Cambodia." And yeah, I get it.
Well, the interesting thing as we listen to the album, though, is this is a rarity in which, man, my thoughts are not so much about any one song on the album in particular, but I was just so immersed in the whole thing that it was really hard for me to divide it up into segments to come up with something to say about this track or the other one.
So, yeah, Jesse, I'm going to let you make the decision here for me and Sean. Are we going to medley 3 in a row, or do you want to do it track by track?
Yeah, I mean, I would say medley's the best way to go about it, and then we'll just kind of throw out our ideas on the three thongs. There's thongs in this album, ladies and gentlemen. Cisco appears somehow.
All my friends go and make me mad. Thong, 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 thong. Wait, what?
Weezer went a different direction, didn't they?
Look, we're talking about Weezer on a metal show. Are we really going to complain about Esoterica here?
Okay. Medley, Mark Radulich.
Yes.
Anachronism.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Vocabulary is fun.
All right, so here we go. The first 3 songs that we're going to hear tonight. Oops. The aforementioned single, all my favorite songs, and then Alu Gobi, and then Grapes of Wrath. Here we go.
All my favorite songs are slow and sad. All my favorite people make me mad. songs are slow and sad. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. What's playing at the Arrow? Some French noir flick. Don't wanna sit next to humans, I'm agoraphobic. Order up a decaf latte, spin Gainsbourg tunes. Gosh darn this cast iron lounger, my butt will bruise. I'd rather be a man on a mission. Oh, oh, oh my God, what's happening to me? Walking down Montana, oh, oh, same old routines, same old Lugo breeze. Walking down Montana, oh, oh. I can feel my breathing, it's so nice, it's like a blanket on my life. Let me stay here for forever in this state of classical denial. Cranking Mrs. Dalloway, Moby Dick trip on a whale. He's kinda just like me, we're thirsty for the deep. I'm gonna rock my audible headphone, grapes of wrath, drift off to oblivion. I just don't care, I just don't care. Rock my audible headphone, grapes of wrath, drift off to oblivion. You think I care, I just don't care.
Oh, I just don't care. Let me tell you how I love all my favorite songs. That whole beginning there, all my favorite songs are slow and sad. All my favorite people make me mad. Everything that feels so good is bad, bad, bad. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, not for nothing, but again, get out of my brain, Weezer.
Is that not the most Weezer-sounding song on the entire album?
Yeah, it's up there, man.
One of the things that they mentioned was obviously the presence of the orchestra throughout the whole album. Now, have they done anything like this before in the past? I mean, I know I'm new to the Weezer scene, but this is the first time they've done something like. Okay, all right. So the orchestra is there now. Mark, when we listen to metal albums that involve an orchestra, usually that orchestra is very overbearing and it's there to make the album sound extremely epic. Clearly, we're going to get a different feel with the orchestra with Weezer. And one thing that I wrote down here is that it's there, but to me, it's not something that overtakes the sound. As for the lyrics, I mean, yeah, I my notes were, for all my favorite songs, definitely a good one. And then Grapes of Wrath, that one right there is, I think, the first time that I realized that this is an album that was constructed during the pandemic, because it's nothing but about listening to an Audible book. So he's listening to an audiobook through Audible, and part of the lyrics he says, "Count on me to show support for Winston Smith in 1984, because battling Big Brother feels more meaningful than binging zombie hordes." Now, what's funny about that is that my whole family, including my 7-year-old son, watched all of The Walking Dead right as the pandemic started. We got bored and threw Walking Dead on and went through just about everything.
You just leaned into it, didn't you?
We did, man. No doubt. No doubt. And we enjoyed ourselves. So, and now we put that aside, obviously, because we got ourselves caught up and are waiting for the next episode. So now we're binging Doctor Who. So I don't know if that is going to be on the next Weezer album, but there you go.
Yeah, Weezer has this really uncanny ability to, we've talked in the past about how one of the nice things about metal compared to some of the other musical genres is lyrical content can be so rich and of a wide array. Like Weezer's talking about books, and they constructed very fun, upbeat lyrics out of a bunch of book titles. And I'm like, you know, that's Weezer all over. Like, if you listen to some of their back catalog, some of the stuff I put on that mix for you, you know, talking about like In the Garage, and he's talking about like, I've got my Dungeon Master's Guide, I got my 12-sided die, you know, like all this stuff that, you know, rings out to our culture, our group of people, you know, the people that we interact with. Weezer takes all of that stuff and makes music out of it, and it's really great.
Wasn't there a song on Pinkerton in which he name drops New Jack getting put through a table?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
he does.
The playlist that you provided, there's a song called Heart Songs off the Red album.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on exactly what you're saying in that one.
Sean, what were some of your... by the way, it's El Scorcho.
El Scorcho.
I couldn't remember which one.
Oh wow, okay.
And that's actually on. That's on there, Jesse. That's one of the ones I put on there.
I listened to it. I don't recall hearing that, but I'll have to listen to it again.
He reminisces on, I believe it's the Dudleys versus the Gangstas.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the exact lyrics here. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, for some indefinite forthcoming window of time, people are going to take this period and they're going to be making art that just drips with irony and biting satire and cynicism. Rivers Cuomo managed to write a truly earnest pandemic opera. Mm-hmm. He has written the world's shortest modern opera, and it is brilliant. It was mentioned that the orchestra never really overwhelms the sound. I would even go a step further, and I would say it would be a crime not to note how the strings are seemingly a stand-in for guitar. Mm-hmm. It's something that fascinates me when I come across an album, or more often full bands, where, you know, we're so used to thinking of the structure of popular music as all kind of containing the same core instruments. We're used to thinking of bass, drums, and guitar as being essential. You know, sometimes keyboard. Occasionally you get somebody like Dave Matthews Band who can throw a saxophone in there, or Yellow Card having a violin player. But it's when you come across one with a really fresh sound that sometimes it takes you a while to notice what's really missing, because they get so inventive about the way they structure the rest of the arrangement. It's kind of like how I remember hearing the White Stripes for the first time, and it taking almost a full album before I went, there ain't a fucking bass to be found.
It's something
because it was the same. Because it was the same deal with the Doors, when I realized they don't have a bass player, and so it's so ingenious to take an instrument that you wouldn't ordinarily think of to kind of shoulder a hook, like, you know, cello, violin, what have you, and to have these strings just perfectly executing what sounds like just a perfectly infectious Weezer hook. Mm-hmm. And I mean, everything about this somehow screams Weezer, despite sounding nothing like the early stuff that's often regarded as their most popular work. It's kind of stunning.
So two things. One, Jesse and I have often talked about how, going back to Clutch, the introduction of the pipe organ really changed their sound for the better. And when it's gone, I think both of us have said to one degree or another how much we miss it. Yeah. And they recently did a show where they had an organ player so they could do some of the songs that people voted on. And I'm like, God, Clutch, never get rid of your organist. Like, it brings such a more fuller sound to everything that they're doing. And you're right, Sean. Like, when you have that orchestral piece that plays as it's like it's an accompanying instrument, as opposed to some of the other stuff that Jesse was talking about, where it just overwhelms the entire sound, you really do create some beautiful music. The second thing I wanted to say real quick before we go to the next three songs, this is a time capsule piece. This is going to be one of those things that people, I think, if this hits or if this resonates with the right people, they're going to come back to it year after year after year and saying, this was one of the pieces of art that came out of the pandemic. Such a gloom, it's like looking back on like Depression era artwork. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Or more recently, American Idiot.
Yeah, it's another good
No,
example.
you laugh. You laugh. I'm not kidding, because I mean, what the hell else do you think Green Day did when they made that? I mean, Billy Joe made no bones about it. I mean, they took the Great American Right Wing shit show and managed to give the decade its quite possibly one and only great rock opera.
I really do adore that album. I'll break that out and listen to it like 3 or 4 times in a day.
Oh, I'm not throwing shade. I don't blame you.
You know what's so funny? Like we have tickets to Hell Omega, which is Weezer, Green Day, and Fall Out Boy later this year, assuming they don't cancel again. And my wife and I are both, again, big Weezer fans, big Green Day fans, and she's a bigger Fall Out Boy fan than I am. And I think that just might be an age thing. And she hates American Idiot. It's like she doesn't get real animated about music ever. But like I think I had American Idiot going in the car one day. She's like, nope. I'm like, what? Wow. It's not Marilyn.
Which is unfortunate, because that was I think Billy Joe had one last great album in him, and I think that was it.
Yeah, and that's certainly up for discussion. The line, by the way, Jesse, is, so I went to your room and read your diary, watching grunge leg drop New Jack through a press table.
Oh, okay, it was Public Enemy.
And then my heart stopped. It's so good.
Wonderful.
All right, folks. Let's go ahead and listen to our next 3 songs. Here we go. We got Numbers, Playing My Piano, and Mirror Image.
There's always a number that'll make you feel bad about yourself. You try to measure up to somebody else. Numbers are out to get you. Numbers are out to get you. Numbers. Ooh. They say that you're too short to join the team, and your IQ's too low for poetry. Numbers are out to get you. Numbers are out to get you. Numbers. Ooh. I hear the silence in your laughter. So call on me and tell me what you need. Just call on me and tell me what you need. My wife is upstairs, my kids are upstairs, and I haven't washed my hair in 3 weeks. I should get back to these Zoom interviews, but I get so absorbed and time flies. I just can't let it go when I'm playing my piano. Ooh, I'm playing my piano. Ooh, I'm pounding out the bass, singing out the tune. I never see the sun like I'm living in a room. I'm playing
in the future, Mirror Image is going to replace Here Come the Bride at weddings.
Oh, you think so?
Aww.
So, Jesse, write this down. You ready?
Okay. Yeah, I'm writing it down.
My pick off this album is Playing My Piano.
Really? Okay.
Oh, my God. There are other, as the kids say, bops on here. But you know me. I love a good celebration of music. Like, it touches my heart to hear any song or watch any movie or television show. I remember we were talking about DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and Captain Steel, or whatever the hell his name was, goes into the whole lecture about Elvis and, you know, and how we got to rock and roll and all of that. And I was gushing about that monologue because I love when music is the thing and there, you know, and it's celebrated. I get emotional. And, you know, when I read these, first of all, like, again, get out of my brain, Weezer. My wife is upstairs. Okay, well, she's in the room behind me, but I don't have an upstairs. It's Florida. But my wife is upstairs. My kids are upstairs, and I haven't washed my hair in 3 weeks. That should be on a flag or something for the pandemic, right? Like, it should be on a banner. So many people... Like, God, there was a video that was going around on Facebook for a while about, you know, about the woman who didn't know what pants were anymore during the lockdown because she hadn't worn pants in so long. She's like, "What's jeans?" You know, but it's the whole idea of playing music and music being that escape for people. Like, this song resonates all the ways with me. You know what I mean?
I hear you. Kim Jong-un could blow up my city, and I'd never know. So, Playing My Piano.
Yes,
that's
sir.
good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Listen, I was speaking to you earlier about this album and the specific song Numbers. That is probably the most powerful track off of this album for me. It's the one that spoke the most.
It's not Screens?
It's Screens is good. Screens I legitimately have listed here as number 2, but I'm taking Numbers as my pick off of this because, man, when you dive into the lyrics of that, it is something that I've thought a lot about. Not just recently, but
that you
for
can't
quite
play
a while.
basketball because you don't make the height.
It's all about numbers, Mark.
Oh, okay.
You got to think about, our life is ruled by numbers. It doesn't have to, whether it be your height, weight, whatever. There's no way to escape them. And a lot of what it sounds like he's talking about in this song is that they're not everything. As much as we make them everything, they aren't. There is much more to life than just numbers. You got your view counts, you got your likes, you got your dislikes. We know about dislikes here on the Metal Hammer of Doom.
Yeah, we do.
But it really does say a lot about the human condition, in my opinion. I did have my daughter listen to this song today. I had her listen to Numbers. I said, I want you to pull this up, and I want you to listen to it, okay? So 15-year-old Kira, I said, give me your full report once you listen to it. And she comes back. She goes, wow, that's hashtag deep. All right.
Oh, God.
She's hashtag a teenager.
Hashtag deep. And I said, well, can you kind of tell me what it's about? And she's like, well, it's about life and numbers. It's like, all right, thanks. I appreciate it.
At which point Jesse pushed his own daughter in the pool.
So she comes into I go upstairs. She comes into the living room. I said, you got to tell me what you think of this song. What did you think about it? And
I'm not leaving here until you talk to me.
I need more than 3 words, please, and a hashtag. You got to give me a little more. And she says that, now I'm quoting her. She tells me that it was virgin music. All right. Never heard of that before. Mark, have you ever heard of virgin music?
I'm sure not in the context she meant it. Go on.
Okay. Okay. Sean, virgin music, is this a term you've heard before?
Only if you're going to slap the term megastore somewhere in there.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, she's way too young to even know that reference.
No, I was thinking, like, I in my mind, like, virgin music for virgins, D&D metal, Blind Guardian.
Well, okay, she didn't take it that far, but that's the first part's correct. She's like, it sounded like, a virgin sitting at home lamenting about the things that are going on. And I'm like, you need to listen to that song again. So then I sat her down and made her go through most of Weezer's greatest hits, and we talked about those instead. But regardless, Numbers is my pick because I think there's a lot there that is being said, and every bit of it's true in my opinion. So there you go.
All right, Sean, what do you got? What do you got for us?
I don't think you could go wrong with any of these three songs because what's so admirable about all of them is they all touch on this kind of raw material on which Rivers could kind of emboss so much bitterness in how he writes about some things, how he portrays them, but instead he just opts for a kind of honesty, just a kind of sincere portraiture. Just this is what it is. It's neither good nor bad. It's neither better nor worse. It is different, but I mean, it is. But in each of them, he manages to kind of try to find the silver lining, where a lot of other artists would just kind of lean towards the grumbling a bit. And it's, how can I put this? It's something that I kind of picked up on about a lot of songwriters as I finally broke down and started giving Taylor Swift a bit of a listen recently. And the realization that I came to after listening to about her 4 most recent albums is that I've really been thinking about what makes a good songwriter entirely wrong. You don't have to have the kind of profound poetic lyricism necessarily of someone like a Tom Waits or a Leonard Cohen or Jeff Buckley or Tori Amos. Sometimes, as we've been sitting here kind of musing about, you just need someone who taps into something and clearly gets you and can keep things simple enough to connect, but still manage to never feel like they're being vapid or lazy. Mm-hmm. or phoning in whatever they're writing about. Like they're still writing about something that's dear to them, but they're not necessarily drowning it in metaphor, or allegory or microcosm. Sometimes it's just a very simple lightning in a bottle Polaroid. And that's what these 3 songs, especially Playing My Piano, feels like. Normally we think of the fourth wall as that thing that narrators and fictional characters are at some points limited by, and at some points they're able to break it and just kind of meta connect with the audience. This kind of feels like the fourth wall has just kind of shuttered Rivers in its own way, but at the same time, he's still finding those moments of kind of life-affirming peace, even when it's in sort of fleeting solitude. Even kind of a notion of just kind of reminding the world that, hey, being alone is not the same as being lonely.
No, it is not. So I'll tell you, Jesse and Sean, I had some trepidation going into this album. I had read about it before it released, and that it was going to be this sort of editorial, reaction to the pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns, and the sort of shared global trauma we all went through. And I was like, okay, I'm interested in what he has to say. And I read a little bit more about the album, and I heard that it was not going to be the rollicking, one of the rollicking color albums. It wasn't going to be Ratitude. It was going to be this really thoughtful reflection about what it was like to go through this experience. And I went, oh, fucking no. Like, oh, God. And I'm like, and Jesse knows, having done enough of these with me, like, I get very excited about a new album of a band that I really like. And then, here's a good example. Jesse's been through this a few times with me now. Ministry. I get very excited when a new Ministry album's coming out, because Ministry is one of my favorite bands of all time. And when they're good, they're the best. When they're bad, they're Dark Side of the Spoon. It's just awful. And I wonder how I ever liked this band. And it's like, and I've gone to Jesse, Jesse, you gotta hear this Ministry album. It's fantastic. And then, you hear the new one, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry I did this to you. That's happened a lot. And so this is Jesse's first experience with Weezer, and, Weezer, not that long ago, did the Teal and the Black album, and there's something else in between there. And so, they've been fairly prolific over the last couple of years, but we've never talked about them on here. And I'm like, Jesse's not really heard a lot of Weezer. I don't want the first time we do this to be awful.
Yeah.
And I'm reading about this album coming up. I'm like, please, I've never asked for anything. Please, for the love of God, don't make this album be so sad I want to throw my computer into the middle of the street after listening to it. And I'll tell you, the point of me bringing all that up was I have been so pleasantly surprised, but also at almost 45 years old, I'm so much more tolerant of this tone than I would have been even 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. 10 years ago, this would have been like, well, that's another one that I hate. And it's so weird because it's not like I don't like this kind of music. I grew up listening to Tori Amos, as you mentioned her, and all kind, the Moody Blues. I went to a Moody Blues show with my dad, so it's not like I don't, I can't listen to anything heavy. But I think 10 years ago I would not have had the patience for a thoughtful, sad reflection of the pandemic. And now I'm like, no, this gets me in the feels. So I wanted to share that. Jesse, any thoughts on that, or you want to move forward?
Well, no, I'll tell you that I understand your fear of something like that, because you have these bands you hold high on a pedestal because they have had some works of art that just blew your mind, and then sometimes you're worried that they just might lay that golden turd that, it looks great, but I wouldn't touch it. So, yeah, I understand where you're coming from there. And my experience with this album, I'll give my final thoughts here at the end for sure, but, this isn't something I went into expecting we're just going to have a rollicking time, I think is what you said. I wasn't expecting something like that. And it's, to me, has a lot to say and it's wrapped inside some good music. So that means a lot to me, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when an album is 100% genuine, which I think this is, it overrides sort of that general, feel-good, rollicking good time you might get from another album, but is sort of bereft of lyrical ideas. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Unless it's Steel Panther, because they're fucking amazing. You ever listen to that Steel Panther, huh? Do you like to play that around the house, Sean?
Hell yes. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Love me some Steel Panther.
All right. The next three songs, here we go. We've got Screens, the aforementioned Screens, Bird with a Broken Wing, and Dead Roses.
catching in my mandible. It was such a thrill. Me and my friends, we were killers. Now I'm just a bird with a broken wing, but still have a song to sing. Turning night to day, whirling clouds away. I'm just a bird with a broken wing, and this beautiful song to sing. Don't feel sad for me, I'm right where I wanna be. Turn the key and step into the blackness. Lamplight falls and casts a laughing phantom. I imagine your smile, the life that we could share. With the last of my steps, I see the truth lying there. Dead roses at the bottom of an oubliette, where they beat you till you beg to live. You were mine and you were always mine. Now I'm crying over dead roses. I could never let them go.
So, Screens is the most Weezery song Weezer did on this Weezer album. By far. Bird with a Broken Wing sounds like it should be playing over the credits of some sort of romance movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say it's a bad thing. It's a great song. It just definitely feels like the end of a movie. And Dead Roses is okay. It's good.
I think Dead Roses is probably the embodiment of the fear that you had that this album could have been 12 tracks of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's, if it would have been 12 tracks of Dead Roses, I would have been like, oh man, I'll step off the Weezer train for now. But no, they slid that in there. The track title, Dead Roses, that's rough. You know it's not going to be a fun track.
It's no anyway. She's on the rag.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Man, you talk about getting into your head, and Weezer did exactly that with Screens for me, just in the first verse.
Did you just like have visions of like when you want like your wife's attention and she's like on her phone and you just like you can't take the phone and throw it into the street, but boy, that thought crosses your mind.
Exchange the word wife with daughter for me.
Okay,
that's it.
I can see it.
That's perfect. I mean, I'll read you this first verse. Young girl lying flat in her bed, streaming images to her head, homework or memes, slime, which, yes, I was victim to the slime videos, and my daughter going, where's the detergent at? Where's the laundry detergent? Okay? If you watch videos? Yes, there was homemade slime videos. This was probably at least 4 or 5 years ago. And Blackpink, ladies and gentlemen, which I believe that is I want to say it's a K-pop band. I could be wrong.
I thought you were going to say it was the name of a hooker.
No. Again, my daughter is a huge BTS fan, so I'm sure Blackpink has come up at some point in conversations that I wasn't paying attention to. But then the next part is 8 hours gone. Now her mind's blown. She don't want me here. That right there.
Yeah.
That's tough. Because I've been there. I've been in the room trying to say, hey, Kira, let's do this, let's do that. And, I try to figure out, is she just paying attention to me to get me to leave? Or is she actually engaging with me and interested in what I have to say?
Let me just indulge this motherfucker so he'll leave.
That's why I brought her into the living room to talk about Weezer. I said, we're doing this face-to-face because you're not just going to phone me off over the phone. But yeah, this Screens, like I said, definitely my second favorite song off of here because, again, it's something that I experienced. And he's laying it all out there. One of the things that he says, I've said this so many times, what is the future going to be like? He says, where will we be 21 years from now? What is it going to be like? Because, smartphones have been around. I think I got my first iPhone in 2010, maybe 2009. So we're, 12 years outside of that? Mm-hmm. Just imagine what kind of insanity is going to be going in 21 years from today.
Aren't we looking at a future that somewhat resembles like half Ready Player One and half WALL-E?
Very good possibility. I probably put on 40 pounds of COVID weight, so, I'm at least going to be one of the guys in the chairs, getting up. And having the robots do my bidding.
Get in my COVID belly. All right, Sean. Screens, Bird with a Broken Wing, and Dead Roses. What you got for me?
I agree. Screens is the most Weezer thing on this entire Weezer album. And by the way, I also mean that in the very most complimentary way. And man, we just have to touch real quickly on how perfect in its understatement and restraint Patrick Wilson's drumming is.
Agreed.
Just every song he just blends so flawlessly.
I was thinking about
28-piece orchestra behind him.
I was thinking about Dave Grohl specifically on the Unplugged Nirvana album, where he was brushing the drums with I don't know what the technical word from, but they were literally like drumsticks made of brushes, and he was just brushing the cymbals and everything so that you got a light touch on the drums. I don't know how much of the Nirvana Unplugged do you remember from MTV.
Not a whole lot, but a little bit. But I was in band in high school, so I know what you're talking. I know the kinds of. I know the brushes you're talking about, and I know exactly what you mean. Man, Patrick is he's proof that to be a really admirable, solid, talented drummer, you don't have to necessarily have 8 arms whipping around a 57-piece kit while you're being spun 360 degrees underwater in a pool full of sharks.
You also don't have to be Lars Ulrich banging on pots and pans, just nullifying everything else around you.
Yeah, or if we're talking about Saint Anger, taking about 3 or 4 tin garbage cans and just kicking them down the stairs and turning a microphone on.
By the way, Jesse, I still laugh at that every time I think about we missed you, Robert Cooper. Because having going through all the old shows, I was thinking about the very first show we did on Spreaker, and it was Phil Anselmo and the Illegals, and we were calling it Phil Anselmo and the Appliances. Oh, yes. Robert Cooper said it sounded like a tin garbage can full of pots and pans, and he rolled down a hill.
Yeah, that was a perfect description.
I'm sorry, Sean. I had to share that memory though with Jesse.
No. It's okay. But what it reminds me of is how if you listen to some people who just clearly prize speed and technique and huge kits over everything.
Yeah.
You kind of notice right away how they'll kind of dismiss drummers like Meg White or Ginger Baker or Ringo Starr and how much they're able to do while seemingly playing so little. Or if we're talking about guitarists, it's like taking somebody who's listened to a whole shitload of Yngwie Malmsteen or Steve Vai and Kirk Hammett, Eddie Van Halen, what have you, and then you play him a Jimmy Vaughn album and they just can't appreciate how much he can get out of just a single note or two. Patrick knows that to really get the most out of what he's doing, he doesn't really have to do much, but what he does, he has to do it well. He can't be too loud or too muted. There's really no room for flourish here. But he just complements everything so beautifully. It's almost like listening to the way Kim Deal's bass lines work with every Pixies song. She's not Flea, she's not Les Claypool, but damn, what she's doing works so well, and yet you barely notice why until you really sit there and tune into it.
I'm going to throw another one at you.
And then once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Who else?
Melissa Oftemure and Hole. Like, when they switched out whoever, I can't remember who the original bass player was in Hole, but when Melissa Oftemure came in, she was a great technical bassist, but she and Hole was a fairly simple band, but she complemented their sound so well.
See, I seem to remember, and I could be completely wrong here, and in fact I'm tempted to even go to Wikipedia and look this up. I could swear that there was like a bass player trade where Darcy Retzky left the Smashing Pumpkins to go play with Hole, and Melissa left Hole and ended up joining Smashing Pumpkins.
Then that might. There was a original bassist of Hole who left the band. She got replaced by Melissa Oftemure, who I believe plays on Live Through This, and then maybe with Malibu, whatever. I don't know if Malibu was the name of the album.
I am gonna look this up now.
Okay, tell you what, you do that, and then we'll come back to you, and you can tell us, how right or wrong I am, and we'll listen to 3 songs and we'll talk about it. How's that sound?
Yeah, sure.
Here we go. Last 3 songs of the night. We've got Everything Happens for a Reason, Here Comes the Rain, and La Brea Tar Pits.
Hey, hey, that's just the way that it goes. Now I'm sinking in the La Brea Tar Pits. I don't want to die 'cause there's still so much to give. I'm sinking, could you give me a lift? Wanna make an escape, but don't know where to begin.
All right, Sean, what'd you find?
Well, I was partially right. Melissa did leave to replace Darcy in the Pumpkins, but I apparently imagined that part about Darcy joining Hole. So, my mistake.
Okay, so Melissa Oftemir is the second bass player, though. Right? I was correct about that. In Hole.
Yes. Yes. Okay. She was the one who played with the Pumpkins pretty much right up to the end of the band.
Okay. Going over to you, Jesse. Here's my one little nitpick about this, and I'll tell you right now, when letter grade A, just A, okay. No questions asked. Love this album. I think I love it for what it represents. I love it for what it says. I love it for how it sounds. There's not a bad song on here. It's really great. I think for what they were going for, and that's an important element of any kind of review that I do, I think Weezer achieved the goal they were looking for. My one nitpick is I wish it had ended with "Here Comes the Rain."
Yeah. I like La Brea Tar Pits. It's kind of, I don't know, it sticks with me for some reason. So I can't.
I wouldn't have minded if La Brea Tar Pits was earlier in the album.
Okay.
Did we really need "Everything Happens for a Reason" all 24 fucking seconds of it?
One thing I did notice, and again, I was listening to your playlist more than I was listening to albums straight through, but they do a great job of having songs lead in to the ends are going to lead into the beginnings of the other songs.
Yeah, they do a good job of blending.
Yes, thank you very much. And Everything Happens for a Reason just reminded me of that, but because that pretty much leads right in. That shouldn't have been 24 seconds of a track. That should have been the beginning of track 11.
Yeah. I was like, track 11 should have been 3 minutes long, not 2 minutes and 27 seconds.
Exactly. But yeah, they do that just a tremendous job of doing that throughout this whole album, because to where at some point I was looking to see if I was making my notes, like, am I in a new song now? Because it sounds different. So it tricked me a good one. But so real quick, I want to give you some other reviews.
Yes, I was going to cue you up for that.
Yeah, so it seems to be getting some. I mean, it's not stellar. People aren't calling this like the greatest thing ever. That's for sure.
Everyone wants him to fucking do Toto again. Play more Africa.
I've got 4 I grabbed here. So 74 on Metacritic right now, 2.5 out of 5 from Our Culture Mag, 3 out of 5 from NME.com, and 3.5 out of 5 for 188 reviews total off of Sputnik Music. So it's not setting the world on fire. I understand you giving it an A, and for me, this being my first full Weezer album, I think I ever really totally listened to straight through more than once.
What an album. Hey, there's this really happy, great, big Beach Boys inspired rockin' band. Here's this depressing one they did.
It was good for what it was. I enjoyed myself. I had a good time, and I come away with a deep respect of the lyric writing for sure, that Rivers puts into a lot of these songs, and the observations that they make in the way that they deliver the intent of the song. So, yeah, I mean,
what was the consensus of the reviews you saw?
It's not. I mean, I didn't go in and read every single one of them. I was just pulling scores.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I could just tell you that there's some bits of criticism that I picked up. One, I just had it in front of me here, but they were kind of giving him a. Now you got to think about this, Mark. The websites that we're going to are definitely not the websites that we're used to on the Metal Hammer of Doom, whether we're reviewing whatever, the latest metal album. So right. Variety, did a review on this.
Oh, Variety, who Carrie Mulligan's not pretty enough to pull off in Trapping Men. That Variety.
Oh, did I set you up for that?
Bump, set, spike.
I withdraw. I will just say that I enjoyed myself. I had a good time. Weezer did a fantastic job bringing this album to light. And I think, as a period piece, if that's what we're going to call it, great. I think it does shine a light on what pandemic life is kind of like, and some of the things that we noticed now that we have the time to notice those things. So,
I'm telling you, this is going to be one of like the pinnacle of like pandemic era music. Depression era music, 60s era counterculture music. This is going to be a defining element of the art that comes out of this period. Go ahead, Sean.
This album absolutely drips with Pet Sounds influence. Seriously. And that might be one of the highest compliments I could possibly play it. I would agree that it feels like somebody maybe misread the track listing. And Here Comes the Rain really should have been the curtain call finale top. And that's not to knock La Brea Tar Pits. No. Of course. Not by any means. Once more, there is not a skippable song on this album. But what gets me about it is, in the aforementioned NPR interview, Rivers kind of likened his songwriting modus operandi to treating it like a massage, like you're getting a foot rub. Someone's rubbing your right foot, and they're doing a fantastic job. You're getting lost in it, but then after a while, the left one is over here like, hey, what about me? Rivers says that he goes in to every album trying to go to some kind of polar opposite direction of the album that he just did. And that's the way he's been doing it for a long time. We tend to think of, and in addition, you got to remember the man is highly educated. He is just one of the smartest overall people in music.
Yeah, Jesse, do you know that I think he dropped out of Harvard to do the Blue Album?
Oh, no kidding!
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. In fact, his deciding to go to Harvard was what nearly ended the band at one point, because they had been touring and writing and recording, and he threw in this application at Harvard after going on a tour kind of on a lark, not really thinking he was going to get in, and they accepted him. And he just kind of told the band, well, I'm going to college, guys. And since then, he's really kind of melded the art and science of songwriting, where he talks in the interview about how there is still very much that romantic element of spontaneous inspiration. But in addition, he kind of guides that, and to kind of give that explosion of inspiration shape, he experiments a lot with algorithms and breaking down great songs into what works, what doesn't, what do they have in common, what sets them apart. It's very precise and analytical, and it's hearing him talk about creativity that way, it really kind of explodes the notion that you're kind of either a left-brained or a right-brained person, and you're always just functioning on one of those two dichotomous wavelengths. This is, and again, keep in mind, at the same time they were working on this, they were working on Van Weezer, their upcoming metal album. And to see the kind of versatility that they bring to the table on a constant basis, it has left them as both one of the most brilliant acts in music, and I think destined to maybe be one of the most underappreciated, because, well, precisely that reason is the fact that they can be counted on for a number of years now to never make the same album twice. And the double-edged sword of that is that on the one hand, Rivers is making music for himself first. And I don't mean that in an egotistical sense. I mean it in the sense that he's making music that he can appreciate, that fulfills him first and foremost. That's something that he can be proud of and immersed in and kind of electrified by, and that helps him explore different sounds and different motifs and different structures. But at the same time, when you're someone who is kind of that intrepid and has that kind of sonic wanderlust, it's going to make it a little bit challenging at some points to truly build a core audience, because you're not always giving people one thing that they can count on, that they can kind of cling to. Some bands go in the opposite direction. For years, I've said that I can't stand 311 because every album sounds the fucking same.
We have a word for that here on the Metal Hammer of Doom. It's called samey.
Good word. That has not been Weezer for a long time, if ever. The closest I think you would maybe get to that would be you could maybe draw a through line between Green Album, Maladroit, and Red Album, where they all sounded very much the same. But I think everything from about, help me out here. Red Album came out after Maladroit, didn't it? Or do I have that backwards?
I can find out here real quick. Give me just a moment. You go ahead and keep talking. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Anyway, but after whichever of those albums kind of came third was where the evolution began to become more and more drastic, more and more experimental. But it never feels alienating, and it's something that's easy to appreciate about art, and that is that the best stuff doesn't come from specifically trying to appeal to one audience. The stuff that really stands out, the stuff that stands the test of time, is where you can watch it, read it, play it, listen to it, look at it. And there's something intangible about it that you can tell that this was not made to make money. This was made because whoever made it enjoyed making it and was really involved and felt passionate about every part of the process, even if it stands apart from what's expected to be a surefire moneymaker. I've often said that's one of the hallmarks of Kanye West at his best, is the fact that if you really listen, especially to a lot of his early stuff, it doesn't share a whole lot of common threads with the earmarks of the most popular hip hop, the stuff that was selling the biggest. He makes a point of how many labels heard him, saw what he was all about, and every single one of them, one after another, passed on him and said, "Nah, we just don't know how to market you. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do with you? You're wearing pink polos and wearing a backpack everywhere. where do you fit in? Who do we sell you to?"
So Maladroit was dropped 2002. The Red Album 2008.
Was it Kanye West who they made fun of on one of the Seth MacFarlane shows where he's like, "I'm going to give this lasagna a massage"?
It's probably South Park. Might have been something on Family Guy.
I was going to say it had to have been Family Guy because I'm now realizing I walked in the bedroom and that's all my wife watches. So
although for the record, and fucking fight me anybody who wants to say otherwise, one of the greatest Seth MacFarlane's ever made was the rap battle between Kanye West and Cleveland Jr. on the Cleveland Show.
Yes. That was a good. That's a fun episode. Sorry, Cleveland when he claps back the first time, and drops the mic. That's some good shit.
I just when Cleveland says A B C D E F G, someone should have told you not to fuck with me. Jaw hit me in the nuts. I could. But anyway, but point being, and I'm sorry if that got a little long-winded, but I feel like that sums up kind of Weezer right now in a nutshell. Is they're the band that you can tell who's really kind of been listening and paying attention by whether or not they at any point yell, "Play Buddy Holly!" We're saying it ain't so. It's because they're clearly living in the age of, for God's sake, someone throw a pie.
stop talking. It's not getting better than that.
Then I will just leave it at that and just say absolute 9 out of 10 will probably end up the most underappreciated album of the year.
All right, you going to come back for Van Weezer?
Hell yeah. All
right. We'll make sure we book it, Dano. All right, Jesse, if you got nothing else, then let's get into plugs. This was a lot of fun. It's funny. There was a comment made earlier in the chat about, I think it's Anna Mataguchi, and they were like, oh, they might be too poppy for you guys. And my response to that was, we reviewed Taylor Swift and Poppy. There's nothing too poppy for the Metal Hammer of Doom.
Love Anna Mataguchi. Hell, who knows? You guys may be heading on the way towards having an entirely different kind of music podcast.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it'll always be the Metal Hammer of Doom because at this point I'm committed to these names.
Sure.
And I'm just not into rebranding things. But yeah, and it's something I've talked about with Jesse. I just want to talk about interesting albums. This is why occasionally, like, we do an old rap album or a new rap album for that matter. And, maybe the Wu-Tang Clan gets 100 listens. Maybe Public Enemy gets 7. I don't know. These things happen. But
so you guys have no limits on genres or time frame.
Probably not going to do much Bette Midler, but but no, I mean, look, just to give everyone a little taste of what's of how the sausage is made. So again, I was looking for albums for us to review later in the year, and I stumbled across an article about how Genghis Tron, who has an album coming out later this year, is moving away from the Nintendo core sound. And I went, what are all these words and what do they mean? What the fuck is a Genghis Tron? Which I was almost committed to doing the new album whenever it comes out because I love that name, and and sometimes that's all it takes for me to want to listen to a band. And they're like an experimental rock band of some variety, and I'm like, Jesse and I don't do well with experimental. I will lose my patience midway through, and then we'll yell, will someone throw a pie? So I was like, okay, no Genghis Tron. But then I went down this rabbit hole of Nintendo core bands, and we discovered Math the Band and Anna Mataguchi and all of this. And so, we're committed to doing some of that later this year. But the point that I was getting to was, I think if something comes up that's just interesting to talk about and that we have a passion about, I don't see why we can't do it. It's, it's our podcast. We'll do what we want. So, later on this year, at a request for the guy who runs this network, Sean Garmer, he wanted to do the Scott Pilgrim versus the World game soundtrack by Anna Mataguchi.
Yeah.
So we'll do that later this year. We're going to do an album that came out last year by Math the Band, which I saw that and I was like, well, if they've got a recent album, that's what we're doing because other than Horse the Band, Math the Band might be the best name I've ever heard.
Stop drilling, you've struck oil.
Yeah, so we're gonna. So they have an album from 2020 that we're gonna do. The day of St. Patrick's Day next month, we're gonna do a band called Fiddler's Green, which they did like an all-out tribute to all things Irish. So that'll be a fun one to talk about too. So I mean, are we doing metal? Sure. We're doing the new Serenia album, the new Rob Zombie, the new Epica, but, the new Corp Laclani is actually next week. But, we're going to go off the beaten track and do some fun stuff, and that's just what we're going to do, right, Jesse?
That's right. I'm here for the whole long haul.
Okay. Did you have something in mind, Sean, that you were like, well, if they're willing to do Horse the Band, then they must be. Did you have something idea, or you're just like, oh, you guys are kind of not going to do strictly metal? Where was your head at?
I think my head was at, I think you can rest assured I'll be asking you to come back.
Sweet.
Yeah, I've only, the only reason I've not dove more into Metal Hammer more over the past few years is because I like metal. I felt like I would be out of place because you and Jesse and Robert et al. All seem to kind of know what you're talking about more, and I felt like I would just be dragging the show down.
Yeah, I thought you did good tonight. I thought you brought a lot to the show, so we appreciated having you on.
Certainly don't think you're going to know less than I do. Okay, when it comes to that.
Weezer, what's that?
Fair warning, Jesse. I'm going to be on source material too.
That's right. That is right.
Especially since I'm ramping up my comic reading. So
that's
Good,
okay.
good.
Jesse doesn't do that show anymore.
My essentiality has taken me from it, apparently.
For so many years I was kind of just in and out, and now I'm trying to be so much more involved again. I feel like, depending on how you want to compare, like either a deadbeat dad that's trying to come back into his kid's life and act like he never left, or like a newly unfrozen Captain America.
The Radulich and Broadcasting Network is Cheers. We are the place where everybody knows your name. No matter how long you stay away, you can always come back, and we will throw a beer at you and yell Norm.
Aw. Well, so Jesse, you're not hosting source material anymore?
I haven't had a chance to recently, just because the way my actual job is going.
I just started my first actual full-time working for somebody else job in years, just about a week and a half ago. So I know what you mean.
It takes a little bit from you. So
it takes.
Luckily, Mark and most of the rest of the network has pitched in and was able to keep the show going. Because basically, Mark said, "What do you want to do? Do you want to do Metal Hammer of Doom, or do you want to continue on with your own show?" I said, "Which one involves less work?" And guess what? Right here on Wednesdays or Thursdays.
Yeah, I asked him, why won't you do your own show anymore? He was like, because this one I don't have to prepare for the Metal Hammer of Doom. I just show up and go, "What's metal?" And I go, "Okay, Jesse, let me." There was once this band called Black Sabbath.
Well, you and I will have to talk comics soon, because I have really decided to just finally go in and pursue my Western comic education in full.
Nice, very nice.
All right, so getting into the plugs here. Speaking of comics, myself and Cole Marentet, we reviewed All Hail Megatron earlier this week. Damn You Hollywood came back, and we did Outside the Wire, which was a straight-to-Netflix movie, and we debuted a new segment called In the News, where we talked not just about the money, because what money, but we talked about what was, a couple of articles of what was going on in the world of entertainment. We reviewed the Royal Rumble, speaking of entertainment. Tomorrow we will be reviewing Beach Bash from AEW. The Nuptials, dear hearts, the Nuptials between the handsome Kip Sabian and the beautiful Penelope Ford, among other things. And Kenta! Holy cow, Kenta showed up. Last week we did The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, issue 6 through 8, the last part of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina show. Labyrinth, Welcome to the Absurd Circus, and it was totally absurd, wasn't it, Jesse? Not really.
Absolutely insane and absurd, sir.
Like these prices, they were insane. Speaking of insane, we reviewed the new Looney Tunes Season 1C, the aforementioned Superstar Spectacle. We did some boxing coverage. We did Trevor Bryan versus Berman Stavern for the WBA Gold Aluminum Platinum Heavyweight Superstar Don King belt, and then we did a real belt. We did a real fight for a real belt. We did the commentary for Caleb Plant versus Caleb Truax. Jesse, what do you got going on with you?
Oh, well, let's see. We got about, I think, 2 or 3 episodes that are going to be airing here pretty soon. I know for sure 2 episodes of Unspoken Issues is going to drop. One most likely tomorrow, and then 2 weeks from that date, Chris Armstrong and I got together and spoke about Crimson issue 1, which, if you're a fan of Cliffhanger comics from back in the 90s, that was a title that was helmed by Humberto Ramos, which first time I ever recognized him, he was an artist on Amazing Spider-Man in, I think, like 2010s. But yeah, all the way back to 1998. And then we have Savage Dragon number 13. That'll be our second episode that'll be dropping in a couple weeks of Unspoken Issues. So it's where we talk about 90s comics. So if you enjoy 90s comics, Chris Armstrong and I usually put together an episode for the UnspokenDecade.com, and it's a lot of fun. Alexis and I recorded a TV party tonight last night where we talked about the first 4 episodes, which was the pilot and 3 episodes proper of Hell of a Boss. And I was enlightened.
Love that show.
Wow. There was a lot of stuff to talk about. I said we're going to do 45 minutes most likely, and it turned out, of course, to be 2 hours because there was quite a bit to talk about. And you want to talk about absurd? I mean, we're talking about a company that is basically contract to kill, based in hell, and all the misadventures that they get into. So,
oh, Jesse, what have you done? Hell of a Boss begat Has Been Hotel.
Uh-huh.
And that has now got a song stuck in my head.
Uh-oh, which one?
Hang on. You know what, Mark? I'm going to send it to you.
Oh.
And we can just play it on the air as a little bonus. Hang on a sec here. Has been.
All right, while you're doing that, next week the Metal Hammer of Doom is going to be we're back to where, we're doing our normal stuff. We're looking at the old folk metal. Oh, Jesse, folk metal is back.
Corpaclani. Now,
Jilya.
Were they one of the ones that kind of gave us a hard time last time we did one of their albums? Or am I getting that?
That was Cruachan.
No. Cruachan loved our stuff.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were talking about. Where they talked about the Yellow Fjord, and and we were like, oh, it's clearly a car they're talking about.
I'm actually thinking about on the like less litigious side where they were like, we don't want you playing our stuff. They flagged our stuff, but I cannot remember if that was
Alice in Chains.
It wasn't as bad as Alice in Chains. I could be wrong. I could be completely off base. But either way, we will be talking about Corpaclani for sure. And whether it gets aired or not, it'll get aired. It's just a matter as to whether it will stay up on the internet.
All right, Sean, go ahead and do your plugs while I look for this song here.
Okay. So, I finally got my streaming schedule worked out. Thursday and... Not Thursday, well... Yeah, this is it. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, you can find me at twitch.tv/ComerCodex. I have recently revived my stream, trying to rebuild my audience after a long time away. It's a variety stream. Some nights we're playing multiplayer, usually Apex Legends, and a lot of nights we're playing story-based games. We just finished up Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. We are about to finish up the quick recap of Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, and then we are going to be launching into... In fact, we're going to be doing that tonight as we record this, probably about 11 p.m. Central Time, since I had to get this taken care of first. And then Friday night, February 5th. I don't know how dates work.
Calendars, what are they?
Friday night, February 5th. I will be on, again, 7 p.m. Central Time. We are going to be playing BioShock 2, and probably also playing that Saturday night at about the same time. And then once we get that wrapped up, probably in a matter of a couple of nights, we are going to jump into Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. But the best way to keep track of when I'm going to be streaming is to follow me on Twitter at ComerCodex, where you will get to hear me rant about the likes of music, food porn, comics, Coyotes hockey, anything and everything else. Just fair warning, very little of it is going to be necessarily appropriate for anyone under 17. But again, also best way to keep track of my various and sundry shenanigans here, there, and everywhere.
Okay, and 50 words or less. What are we about to listen to? Because it's going to be our
outro. This is easily the most memorable song, the most memorable moment from the pilot of Has Been Hotel, which is about the daughter of Satan wanting to create a hotel in hell to rehabilitate sinners.
All right, here we go. Be well, be safe, and behave, everybody. Okay, well, I tried to play it.
Are you going through YouTube or are you going through Spotify?
No, it's going through Spotify. All right, we got to go, guys.
Strange.
All right, be well. Like I said, be well, be safe. Oh, there it goes.